Hello all, this is your friendly neighborhood Aiken back with another amazing video. Technology is so amazing. Everything about it is so fascinating and complex and honestly really fucking confusing at times, but it is just simply amazing. What isn't amazing is the biggest companies in the technology industry constantly trying their hardest to exploit the people that buy their products. Apple, Microsoft, Google, Intel, Nvidia, and so many fucking more. If you for 1 second think that any of these companies have your best interest in mind, well, I'm here to burst your trust bubble. Want to hear a joke? What's one thing that all multi-billion-dollar tech companies have in common? If you answered corporate greed, you are 100% correct. If you're unaware of what corporate greed is, allow me to define it for you. Corporate greed is when a corporation makes strategic decisions for the sole purpose of gaining more wealth while ignoring the notion of morals and ethics. In simple terms, big corporations are run by sociopaths that don't care about the people they make money off of or any harm they cause. Now we're going to start this video off with some more mild examples and work our way over to the really bad stuff. Okay? Okay. First up, making numbers relating to technology seem larger than they actually are. This is a lot more common than you might think. To a consumer that doesn't have much knowledge about electronics, this can be very confusing and can lead to them purchasing a product that doesn't adequately suit their needs, and is just making them spend more money for extra features or speed that they just don't fucking need. A pretty basic but very big example of this is how internet speed is measured in megabits and gigabits, not megabytes and gigabytes. If you don't know already, the difference between a bit and a byte is that there are 8 bits for every byte. So 8 bits equals 1 byte, 64 bits equals 8 bytes, 256 bits equals 32 bytes, you get the picture. Normally, data is measured in bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes. So files on your computer, storage space on a flash drive or an SSD or a hard drive, that kind of stuff. However, internet speed is measured in bits, kilobits, megabits, gigabits. Why? Well, because human psychology treats bigger numbers as inherently being better unless it's explicitly stated otherwise. And who benefits from their customers thinking their internet speeds that they're providing them are significantly faster than they actually are? Oh yeah, any internet service provider ever. But you might be saying, but why wouldn't it matter as much for data storage as it does with internet? An internet service provider is directly providing you a service, internet, whereas a company selling you a product with storage on it is doing just that. They're selling you a product. One is selling you a physical product versus one that is selling you a subscription. And once you're locked into a subscription, well, they've got you. It's the exact same thing when it comes to cellular service companies like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, whatever. Also, it's not like hard drives or whatever else don't have their own pitfall. A hard drive that is being sold as having 4 terabytes will not show up as having 4 terabytes on your computer. It will actually be around 3.6 terabytes. That's due to the operating system that it's running on, reserving that extra 400-ish gigabytes for extra system stability, cache reserves, blah, blah, blah. That's not immediately a bad thing. That is stuff that has to happen. But what is bad is how it's not advertised as having 3.6 terabytes of usable space. The company that designed that hard drive is very well aware that you're not going to be able to use that 400 gigabytes, but they still choose to advertise it as being a 4 terabyte hard drive. Now they could add on extra space on top of the 4 terabytes while still advertising it as being 4 terabytes. And in that case, that would make it 4 terabytes of usable storage. But that would be extremely costly for them on a mass production scale, and since it doesn't matter for them legally, and customers obviously aren't rioting in the streets for that extra 400 gigabytes, they don't have to. Nobody does. That's just how it is. Second, resolutions for televisions, monitors, your little brother's iPad, whatever, also experience a similar issue. Let's take 1080p for example. This very overused resolution has very much been the standard for a lot of devices for a while now. 1080p resolution is 1920 by 1080. That's a measure of how many pixels there are on a 1080p display horizontally and vertically. The name 1080p comes from how many pixels are present vertically. The total amount of pixels on a 1080p display is 2,073,600, which is a lot. You get that number by straight up doing what this says to do. Just multiply the two numbers together. Whoa, so simple. There's also 1440p, but I've never really given a shit about it, so I'm just gonna skip it. Next up is 4K, which is 3840 by 2160. The name 4K is essentially just the same as saying 4000p, which originates from the vertical measurement of the amount of pixels on a 4K display. So the difference between the naming scheme of 1080p and 4K is that the name 1080p derives from the vertical measurement of pixels, whereas 4K derives from the horizontal measurement. Anyways, what you're left with is customers that are confused, as I'm sure you were by my attempted explanation, at the differences between the names of the two. So, why is this the case? Why did they switch from a vertical measurement to a horizontal one? Well, since it's a 16:9 aspect ratio, the horizontal number of pixels is significantly larger than the vertical. No shit. The name 1080p likely came a little before the resolution started being used in 2007. At that time, there wasn't as prevalent of a need to fudge the details, since widespread PC gaming was in its baby stage, and filmmakers were busy with their already well-established technology. A few years later, when PC gaming started taking off and all those big tech companies were looking to increase their resolutions on their products, you can bet your ass they were wanting to capitalize on that as much as they could. So they did. If you're going off the same metrics as 1080p, 4K should actually be named 2K, and 4K is actually referred to as 2160p occasionally, mostly by people who need to be technical, the aforementioned filmmakers and such. Also, 4K is obviously rounded up from 3840, and calling it 2K instead it would be rounding it down from 2160. So, keeping with the same thing from before, yeah, they ended up choosing the one with the bigger number. Alright, time for the third and final one on the list. Useless information in advertising disguised as revolutionary. There are a lot of tech companies that say that their new products have the fastest performance of any product that they've ever made. Yeah, no shit, why the fuck would anyone buy it if it was slower than a product you came out with 2 years ago? It also costs more. Did you ever care to mention how your new product also represents much less value to the consumer? Nvidia is a terrible example of this. Over time, graphics cards from Nvidia have increased in performance substantially, but what other aspect has increased even more substantially than performance? Cost, very significantly. But you might say we were in the middle of an economic disaster. The world was hit with COVID-19 and prices went up for everything because they had to. People were working less resources were being produced, and it was what was necessary. But the truth is, tons of companies used the situation for their own self-benefit. Nvidia didn't have to raise graphics card prices by 300%. They did it because they knew that customers were accepting the reality that everything that they could find was expensive and that this had to happen. But that's bullshit. All that any billionaire cares about when it comes to selling you a product is how much money can I make and how can I use my surroundings to my advantage. The good guy look is a very good look. People don't actually have to do good, they just have to appear to be doing good. There are numerous examples of big companies from every industry just straight up lying to people's faces. It's honestly not far off from false advertising, but it technically isn't, and that's all it takes for it to be perfectly okay and legal. And even if some of it wasn't legal, do you really think that some billionaire tech CEO is gonna get arrested for falsely advertising products? No. They're gonna get a slap on the wrist. The most they'll get is a fine, which means just about nothing to them, since they can make back 10 times what it cost them in a year. Honestly, all this shit is just sickening to me, and it's just so deeply rooted in capitalism at this point, and there is just absolutely no way around it in the modern era. I could go on and on for hours about this type of shit, but I honestly just don't want to. I really don't like feeling powerless, but I can't help feeling that way whenever I think about this kind of stuff. I don't know, if you got to this point in the video, I'd like to know what you all think about the kind of stuff I said, so comment down below with any thoughts you had, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to show me your appreciation by liking and subscribing. Until next time, have a great rest of your day.